and I see beautiful white light pouring out of everyone. Like everyone's a beautiful angel. They're all just totally gorgeous. And I'm walking down the street like, how did I never notice everyone's so beautiful? And I was just actually seeing like real light pouring out of everyone. Like, wow, I've missed this. Everyone is so amazing. And I just felt like so much love for everyone that I saw.
Yes, Rebecca. Well, thank you so much for giving us a chance to speak to you today. So, Rebecca is a pediatric speech language pathologist, a healer, speaker, and teacher. So, you underwent a profound spiritually transformative experience in your 20s while working on healing from childhood trauma. Today, you call yourself the accidental mystic because it all seemed like it happened by accident, but was it really an accident?
Probably not. Yeah, that's how I feel. It's the accident to my personality for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here, Danny.
No, no, thank you, Rebecca. So, yeah, why don't I give you a chance to talk a little bit about your STE and we'll go from there.
Amazing. Let's do it. So I know Danny through IANS. Hi everyone at IANS. I had a big spiritually transformative experience in my 20s that really clicked all the boxes of the near death experience, but I never died. But I always really identified with near death experiencers for several reasons that you'll hear. So when I was 13, I had a horrible trauma. It was an assault, and I had all the hallmarks of PTSD. At points, I was suicidal. I had nightmares, but I always was able to keep my life together on the outside. I was a perfect student, all this stuff, but I had this trauma that was really just festering. And I went to therapy. My mom was a psychologist, and my dad is an MD, PhD. So he's a physician with a PhD in biochemistry.
Yeah.
So I did have avenues to therapy, but I never was a believer in a spiritual world, which I eventually had to accept because of my experiences. So I went to therapy throughout some of high school, a lot of college, and eventually the therapist told me I was fine. And I remember at 23 feeling like, I know I'm not fine. And I know they told me I'm fine because I'm functional, but there's something that's not right. And I really just felt like something was on top of my heart. And I said at age 23 that I want to heal all the way and I want to feel my heart. And this really, making that little very small internal choice, really, not a small choice, I guess deciding that was a big choice because my whole life started to shift. I was introduced to energy healing, didn't believe in it. Very was so skeptical, but it really started to help me because as much as I'd been to talk therapy, I had like levels of energy healing that needed to be like unwound and rebalanced. I started doing like a lot of yoga, an hour a day, 5, 6 days a week, because I was like trying to come back to my body. I'd been to therapy in the late 90s and early 2000s before all the really good trauma healing stuff came out. I mean, that might have been around, but it like the embodiment practices wasn't really a part of it until I did all this yoga, which all of these things were helping. And I was like 25 years old. I was like, I am healed. I feel amazing. And then my spiritual experience started when I was 26, which was like, oh, okay, I had more to do. But I was part of why my experience started was I had started writing my journal, Dear God, around the time at age 23 when I wanted to heal all the way. So I would just write like, Dear God, and write what was going on in my life. I wasn't really like I come from an interfaith family of Jewish and Christian. So I was comfortable with the word God, but it was really just my heart on the page. And I would just write what was going on in my life. And this one night at age 26, so at this point, I'd moved to graduate school. I was a master's student in speech pathology at Teachers College, Columbia University. And that's where I wrote this fateful journal entry in January 2006. I just got a little overtaken and I wrote, Dear God, I have decided to give my life to you and whatever that entails. I want to be guided by you, by the light. This is my pledge. I will work hard to follow this path and bring it to fruition. Please help me do this. Please help me bring light to other people. Thank you. Amen. And I was just crying as I wrote this, and it felt like it came out of nowhere. Um, I can't even say what made me write this. I had been a little sick. I'd been reading some inspirational books, and I was just like, I didn't even mean to write this. But this is what started my whole 2-year STE. So that night as I was going to bed, I saw a light come over my bed, and And I knew right away, this is part of why I identify with NDEers, is that it was more real than real. So this light was a beautiful white light, like a circle, just came over my bed from one end of the room to right over me. And I was really scared of it. And I tensed up and I said, "Go away. I'm afraid. Go away. I'm afraid." Because I could tell that it was looking into my soul past the levels of my personality, even though I'd done all this healing for the few years prior. So as I told it to go away, I started to feel tingling come through my head. And it started here and it started spreading and getting stronger. And it felt like love and peace. But I was like, what is this headache? This headache is really weird. It's like it felt very like a headache, but a lot of love. And I had a boyfriend asleep next to me at the time. And I was like, I thought maybe I should wake him up and find out if he's having this really weird headache. And I kept getting stronger. And then I relaxed into the feeling and I felt a voice that said, "You don't have to be afraid, but if you are, you can wear a hat." And it put a graduation hat into my mind's eye. And at the time, I was 26 and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know I was having a spiritual experience. And I was just like, that's not a cute hat. Here's three other hats that are cuter. Like, because I didn't know why it would give me. Now I know it was a metaphor because I was in graduate school and I think I was, able to wear the hat of a graduate student the whole time I was going through these 2 years of experiences. I was still an excellent student and able to make it through graduate school. Barely, barely, but um, so I just went to sleep after that message. I didn't really understand it, but I went to sleep and then I woke up the next morning thinking like, okay, that was weird. And I'm going to school class and I see beautiful white light pouring out of everyone. Like everyone's a beautiful angel. They're all just totally gorgeous. And I'm walking down the street like, how did I never notice everyone's so beautiful? And I was just actually seeing like real light pouring out of everyone. Like, wow, I've missed this. Everyone is so amazing. And I just felt like so much love for everyone that I saw. And the other thing that started happening, so, like, right away, those couple of things happened, and then I also started having psychic dreams that week or the 2nd week. Um, Precognitive, psychic, prophetic, however you wanna call it. I never was raised to believe in this. My mom was a psychologist. This is not, like, part of my vocabulary. We analyzed our dreams Freudian style, but I'm starting to have dreams that are giving me guidance, that are coming true, and I've had different dreams over the years. This is one of the reasons I decided my experience was real, was that I would have dreams that happen. So some of the big ones were like I had a dream about a car accident a few days before it happened. I had a dream about getting carbon monoxide poisoning and surviving it a few days before it happened. And other things like friends coming to me in my dreams and telling me things in my dreams and then it would be real. So but it's just they've been consistent over the years. And they come and go. Sometimes they're a lot stronger and sometimes I'm really busy and I don't get that many, but that was pretty wild to have that start happening. And around this time I thought, okay, I've lost it. I'm schizophrenic and I need some help. Like this is not good. Oh, I'm not supposed to be seeing all this stuff. So I Googled shaman New York because I was like, I'd heard my healer, my friend talk about these people, and I was like, I should go see someone and make sure, find out if I'm schizophrenic. I did not go to a psychiatrist. I know I would have probably gotten a different opinion that way, but who knows? I know the field is really changing. So I made an appointment and I went to him and I said, I I devoted my life to God. I saw a light. I think I'm schizophrenic. Do I have to drop out of grad school? Because this was my big worry now that I was gonna have to leave grad school. Not that I was having this beautiful experience of God, because I was still very in my human self. And he told me, "It's okay. We're all schizophrenic. The whole world is a dream, and you'll finish school." And I did. And he's like, "You're just having an intellectual crisis. It'll be over soon." And he became a mentor for me for those couple years. I saw him a handful of times, and he really helped me reframe what was happening to me. I also had a stepdad in my life that my mom remarried in my early 20s who came from an indigenous medicine tradition. So he was very quiet about his abilities, but as soon as my experience started, he started having dreams about me. And he had dreams that I was becoming an angel of God on the earth. That's a really lofty thing to say. I don't think I'm that good of a person, but I do think, I was having this big spiritual experience and he was tuning into it. So he really helped me verify and help me feel like these two people were like, okay, maybe this is an okay experience, even though it's way out of my realm of what I accept as real. So a few other things happened over these 2 years. Basically, my whole life was getting realigned with love and God, creator, source. Um, also had a mini life review during these couple years where I felt all the feelings that my sister had when I was really careless with her feelings and I didn't realize it. I'd kind of dropped the ball on something that was important to her. And when I talked to her on the phone, I could feel everything she felt and she wasn't even saying anything. And I thought, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know I was affecting people. I didn't know I could hurt people like this." And I didn't wanna do that ever again. So I got really aware of how much we affect other people and as also obviously how much kindness it helps the world, being kind to strangers, kind to your friends, forgiving, all that stuff started to become really important. Um, but I had no idea. It's like I was living in blindness basically of how much I was affecting people. I mean, we all affect each other. So I also started feeling angels around me. They never said we are angels, but I felt like these loving light beings. Like as soon as I made that promise and I was going through my life, I would feel like all this light, loving beings around me. And sometimes they would step forward, and sometimes they would step back. But like one time I really remember big was I was gonna sign up to study abroad for my graduate program as soon as I picked up the pen to do that, because we were still writing with pens back then for stuff like this, this was like 2006, 2007, felt 2 really tall angels on either shoulder, which was so cool because I could just tell they were really tall, and they were basically very wordlessly guiding me to not do that. But what's so neat about that is I've heard from other experiencers describe angels as really tall, and I was like it's, like, really neat to hear that validation. And I saw angels during this time, like rainbow swirly angels and like beautiful, um, just felt them. And they just felt like they were loving helpers. And that's part of how I do the spiritual work I do now. Um, a few other things happened. I overcame my nightmares. So I'd had these traumatic, like sleep paralysis nightmares ever since my trauma. And I didn't believe in anything like demonic because my background was pretty rational, even though I have a varied religious background. Um, I I don't still jur I for me, I'm not sure what I believe about these, but I was experiencing these, like I would be awakened, I wouldn't be able to move, and these shadowy figures would circle me, and I would be so scared and just try to wake myself up, and I would just be in total fear. And, during my STE, during these couple years, I was awakened with my last nightmare ever because as soon as I was awakened and I saw the shadowy thing, I was like, "Oh." Like, I don't know why I've ever been afraid of you guys. I'm not afraid, and I just looked right at it and said, "You can't hurt me. God lives in me and works through me." And I just had the most relaxed, trusting feeling, knowing that these things, whatever they were, couldn't hurt me anymore, and they went away. I never had another nightmare again, never been bothered by any of that, whatever that was, and that was a really big deal to me because I had been plagued by them. You know, all the therapy, all the healing, nothing had made them go away until I knew I didn't have to be afraid anymore. Kind of the coolest part, getting to the end of it, I have a list, but, well, obviously, I felt how loved I was. That was, like, the biggest thing of all is I felt I was totally loved. I felt like no matter what I did, creator, God, source, like, really cared about me, and it was very transformative to have this kind of know this kind of love. I also saw and experienced an alternate timeline of my life, which was nothing I'd ever heard about or even thought about, but I was gonna write a different book during those 2 years. And it was just like everything was so ramped up spiritually for me, so I opened my computer to write a different book. And I didn't now I know, like, my whole like, I'm supposed to be talking about this, writing about this, sharing about it. It took me, like, a really long time to realize that because I was, like, didn't quite get it. But I had opened my computer, and as soon as I was starting to write this other book, not about my spiritual experience, I saw and lived my entire life as if I'd done that. I saw the book getting published to bad reviews, and I, like, read the bad review, and I lived that whole thing. I even saw the house I was living in. I saw myself feeling so dejected and, like, never really recovering and just living out this kinda sad life. And it was just like living it, and then it was over, and it was like being in a movie and watching a movie, which is another thing that reminds me of some indie ears I've heard talk about parts of their experience. And I was like, "Whoa, okay, I'm not gonna do that. That doesn't seem like a good choice." And I just closed my computer and, like, didn't do it, but it was really wild to, like, actually feel that whole other life that I could have lived. And they weren't saying, "Don't do this," or whatever. It was more like, "This is what it's gonna be like." And I think now that my experience is over, which I'll get to how it ended in a sec. I think, a lot of us, what was really heightened for me was I was actually feeling and seeing what just feels like your heart's guidance or your heart's intuition. But like during these 2 years, I actually saw the timelines, felt the angels, like saw all this stuff. But now it's like, oh, that's just my heart. And we're just, the heart is really the connection that keeps you going the right way. But I think at the higher spiritual levels, it's actually like you're feeling the different timelines or the angelic guidance that I was so tuned into for these couple years. So how did all these things happen? And basically my heart was getting cleaned out and I was like just feeling all this love and anywhere where that wasn't in alignment was getting in alignment. And then I had this dream that ended my experience and it was um I was in my room talking to this person and I was complaining about my life and my room is filled with light and I'm just saying like I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. Life is hard. And this person's looking at me and glowing and like just looking at me with all this love. And he's just saying, life is amazing. You need to go have a good life, go have adventures. Being alive is such a gift. And just like with so much love and excitement. And then I looked at him because he was glowing so much. And I remember he was very beautiful, like just so much love. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's your name? And when am I going to meet you? Because he seemed very real and he seemed like he was gonna be my boyfriend. Like, at this time, I was 28. I didn't really like that just made the most sense to me, and he said with the most love, like, not even judging that I was, like, really not spiritually intelligent. He was like, he was like, "You'll my name's Jonathan. You'll meet me when you finish swimming." And just with so much love, and from that point on, the dream shifted from me talking to him in my room with all this light to me being alone on a big ship in the ocean at night, and I was just lowered down from this big ship into the ocean, and the dream ended with me just swimming out into this night ocean at night. I woke up the next morning from that dream, and all the light was gone. I felt like the angels were gone, like, I felt like I was just totally left here on this planet, and I didn't understand why. I kept being like, "Was that real? Where did all that light go?" And then I would also think, "Okay, I'm definitely done swimming." Like, the next week, I was like, "Okay, I'm done swimming, I'm gonna meet this guy now." It wouldn't happen. It didn't happen, like, for many weeks ever. Now I know I'm swimming the rest of my life and that he was probably an angel or a guide, for me. I haven't had another dream about him. I think it was just, like, a major message, and that was the end of my experience. I had one more big download right after my experience ended, and I was still kind of I feel like for a little while after it, I was, in between the worlds a little bit. But I was awakened in the middle of the night, with a feeling of all of human life and how sacred it was, and it was, like, pressing down on me, and I could just feel all of humanity and I could see the whole planet and how sacred each one of us is and how beautiful and loved we are, and, like, people I could see, like, people going to their jobs, people going to the market, and these little basic things we do every day are very sacred. And as I felt this whole feeling, I felt us all going off of a cliff. I don't know what the cliff is, but maybe it's right now, I don't know. And as I felt that we were, like, speeding up toward this cliff, I just said, "Love is all there is," and, the feeling stopped. And that was 2008, and now, I got really guided to start sharing my story in 2023. I was really pushed, for years, I just would couldn't decide if it was real, but I had my stepdad's guidance. Eventually, I reconnected to all of it. I read near-death experience books in secret and felt very connected to all of these people that we now know through IANS, and then I started speaking and telling my story in 2023, which I've been doing ever since. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you, Rebecca, for sharing. You touched on a lot of really interesting points. Let's see if we can elaborate on a few of those. So,
Yeah.
well, I have so many questions. So, yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
talked briefly about your after effects, and one of the things that stood out from, I think you mentioned it on your website, is that your question over the years shifted from was it real to did it make my life or the lives of those around me better? So I'd be curious to know in which way do you feel that this experience has improved the way that you connect with yourself and the others?
Oh, that's a great question, Danny, and also so grounded. I love it. Yeah, that was a big question. I was like, I don't know what's real. I was told the whole world is a dream. So what? Who knows? But I was like, this made my life so much better. And so part of how it made it better, A, is like I know that we're all totally loved. And like things like simple things like prayer is very powerful and real. And I feel like we're all connected. That made my life better. But also basic things for me, like selfishly or personally, like I was able to sleep through the night. I stopped having my nightmares. Like, I don't know if it was real, but it definitely made a difference for me. I felt like so much happier. And even if I wasn't that happy, people would be like, "Oh my gosh, Rebecca is so nice. Rebecca's so peaceful." And I wouldn't always feel that way, but I think like I just had this energy after this experience. So yeah, it made my life better. And now I'm able to work with others and like really help others. So during graduate school, and nothing against research, but I was doing research a bunch and like as my experience ended, I just ended up like saying no to a research job, a big kind of a really good one, and just going to work with like underserved communities and children. And that's like what I've done ever since, besides this stuff, is like work with kids in the schools and who have, speech and language delays and differences. And yeah,
Well,
so that's been, yeah.
that's great. Well, I know you've been doing a lot of work with angels. So I was wondering
Mhm.
if you had any recommendations for those that want to learn to receive guidance from angels or spirit guides.
Ooh. First off, know that they're always with you. And I saw that so loudly during my experience. I never would have thought it before. I thought it was a ridiculous concept. It's like a real thing. So I think you can just reach out. You can ask. I mean, um, ask to be helped. Ask, you can start if you can start by asking for help from God, or you can just reach out directly from your angel to your angel or spirit guide. Um, they're there to help you, and you have like help and guidance throughout your life, and you can just trust it. That's the number one thing. There's so many great teachers and resources. I do think it comes from your heart. And if you can get quiet enough to feel your heart, that's your spiritual connection to source. I love to do writing and journaling because that's how my experience started. So some people would call that automatic writing. Um, And then you just can start to ask, because my whole experience started because I made this big promise that I feel like I didn't mean to make in my personality. But, you can ask to be of service or ask to be guided, and they'll, like, they'll help you, especially if you wanna be of service to others. You're gonna get a lot of extra help, I think. So,
Yeah, I can
yeah.
certainly attest to that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's curious to know, do you still see the lights emanating from people?
Yes,
Still,
yeah,
yeah,
especially if they're against a white wall, so I totally see your light.
really? Oh,
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's different almost than an aura, because this is more like your soul light from the creator that we all come from, and of course, we have different things that, we go through that affects different colors, but this is just like the beautiful light, and, yeah, I love seeing it. A lot of it, once my experience ended, a lot of it was through I could see more of it through people's eyes, but what was so confusing is that I'd had this dream about this beautiful glowing angel or whatever, and I would go on dates and I would like look in people's eyes. And if I looked like deeply, some people it was just right there because they're really spiritually connected and loving. But underneath, I would just be like, oh wait, there's the same light that that angel had. Oh, wait, are you the guy from the dream? And I would just be very confused because I thought it looked like everyone, but we all have that beautiful light, and now I've gotten my stuff together better than I did. In the beginning, I was just like, "I don't know if that was real, but everyone still has the light." Anyway,
that makes sense. Absolutely. I was hoping to be able to talk a little bit more about your integration process.
yeah.
Is I think quite a few people still assume that once you have the experience, whether it's an NDE or an STE, you come out of the experience instantly transformed. They don't realize that these are often lived as traumas, and it can take years of readjusting, readaptation, of making sense of in case yourself. So yes, hoping to be able to tell us a little bit more about your
Yeah.
integration.
That's so true, and that's where I really did differ in a lot of ways from an NDE, or not to keep comparing it, but I'm like, "These are my best friends," but they had to go through, like, physical rehabilitation, a lot of them.
Mm.
I never had to go through that because that sounds very hard, but I was going through, like, psychological rehabilitation for that whole time from my trauma, but then, that once my experience ended, I was so confused. I actually, moved back to Louisiana and ended up living in a cabin in the woods. Not that it was bad, but I was actually trying to figure out where all the light went, and I was like, because I never left the planet, and I was like, "Wait, I know it's here somewhere. Maybe if I live in the woods and I walk around the woods enough, I'll be able to find, like, where all the light went." And I didn't really I now know it's, like, through the heart, and you can connect through it to it spiritually. It's present when we're present with it. But I didn't know that for a long time, and I was so confused. And then the next part of my integrate first I tried to escape the planet or figure out where the light was. I did a lot of crying alone, and I would, like, hold out my hand and feel the angels hold my hand, but a lot of it was like, "God, why would you leave me here? Why did you leave me on this planet?" Because you feel so much love, and it's like, you can't I just so maybe some people live like that all the time, but mine definitely, like, I felt it and then it was done, and so after I went through the phase of trying to escape or find it again, I went through a major denial phase where I was like, "That was fake. I was crazy. That's nuts." That's and I just disconnected, and that if you talk about light getting dim, like, my light I would just not listen to my heart, I would drink with my friends, and I was just watching it go, like but I think I'm not alone in going through that phase, I don't know.
You're definitely not.
Eventually
Yeah.
okay, good. And, my stepdad was in my life, and I feel like it did hurt a relationship a little bit when I was like, "No, that wasn't real," and, like, he had given me so much wisdom and guidance during my spiritual experience and after, that when I disconnected myself from it, I do think and of course, we've made up, he's on the other side, and I love him dearly, but that was a moment but I needed to go through it, and then over time I started to get really, really guided. Now, I always had my psychic dreams even when I was in denial about my spiritual experience. But then over time, it was like, okay, I think this was real. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to talk about it. I know I'm supposed to talk about this, and I think this was real. And that was the last few years. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you have any recommendations for those that are going through their own integration?
Oh, that's a great question, Danny. My number one thing is to trust your own experiences, especially if they're making you feel more balanced and healthy and happy. And to be around other spiritual experiencers or other people who can guide you, maybe they're a little further down the path. Um, you're not crazy. Your spiritual experiences are very meaningful. Um, and I think it could help to find a teacher if you need to work with someone that can give you some guidance. Of course, I'm always here. I'm not going to plug myself, but there are people that are great. I've worked with Suzanne Giesman, who really did help me integrate when I was deciding to. I had a dream to study with her. Actually, I prayed for guidance for who to study with, and when I was finally reconnecting, and I had a dream I was in her class, and I was like, "What?" Oh my gosh, because I was like, "I'm not into any of this stuff," and I went to her first class, I went to in-person class, and I was like, "Everyone here's schizophrenic and they don't care?" Like, I couldn't believe but now I know, like, it was actually very, very verifiable, and doing that kind of work, like, in my sessions, I'm not technically a medium, but I do connect to the angelic realm and give guidance, and that, when it's verifiable and true, that has been very, you know, oh, like, again and again, dismantled my skepticism and been very integrating, so studying with a teacher could be really integrating as well.
Absolutely. So here's a question for the skeptics out there.
Yeah.
So, would you have any advice for those that are perhaps still trying to come to terms with the notion of an afterlife?
One of the things that's really helped me and that might help you is that we are mind, body, and spirit. And I basically had mind and body in great shape, like when I was 23. And that, when was still feeling off, that was my spiritual side that needed healing. And that was what led to my spiritual experience. So just trusting, like, you could have everything in your mind and your body, like a lot of people in the Western world do, but the spirit is out of balance. So I think that, thinking about it in those terms, mind, body, spirit. Um, I think I found even skeptics have had spiritual experiences that they decide to forget about, kind of like mine, but maybe think about your own experiences. Have you ever felt something from a loved one on the other side? Um, it's much better life when you can be integrated with your spiritual side. So and read NDEs, watch NDEs. I mean, the people that are talking about these experiences there's from every walk of life, but there's tons of skeptics that have had NDEs and come back and say, "Okay, I was totally wrong."
Yeah,
So,
that's great. Well, so you learned so much from an experience like that. But if you had to pick one lesson out of everything you learned, what would that be?
this is a lesson I've learned in my spiritual experience and that I'm getting back to, but, like, we're never separate from source. Like, our hearts are always plugged into source, God, creator, and, like, just as the more you align with it, the more you can see that you've never really been alone or separate. That's my number 1 right
Yeah,
now.
I love that. Be curious to know also what's your idea of God these days.
Okay, yeah, I use the word God because I wrote that in my journal, but I know it brings up, like, 1,000 things. To me, it's just love, and, it's but it's, like, the biggest, most expansive love that, like, makes the flowers grow and the planets turn, and it's, I think, way bigger than I can understand, but that's I it to me, it feels like being in touch with my heart and love, but that's why I think I'm supposed to talk part of why I'm supposed to talk about it. It's the word God brings up so much, but really in my own experience, it was a lot of love, and it was very personal, and it was very real to me, and it healed me, so not such a big deal, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. So why do you think God made us?
Why do I think God made us? These are big questions. I've
Right.
read this and I kind of believe it. No, I love the questions. I mean, this is what we're here for. I know you love these
Exactly.
questions. Um, I think we're supposed to be experiencing ourselves. Like, I do believe we come from source. We come down to be physical to experience different things like healing or love or overcoming. And it's sometimes very hard. And then we go back. But I think it's because I've heard and I believe we're God experiencing God in the physical.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was wondering also if you feel that perhaps we are entering a new era where we're witnessing a shift from a material to a more spiritual society, and that right, and maybe this is the consequence of the advent of the field of near-death studies and a lot of these new fields of research and science which have really popped up in the last few decades.
Yeah, I hope so, and I think so. Um, I, with the amount of when my experience happened, 2006 to 2008, I felt very alone and I couldn't tell anyone. And now, 20 years later in January, which was when this will come out, or whenever after, but, it's a lot more normal. Now, I'm not saying everyone's vibing with it, but, like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's great. Awesome. Seems like you're having this is a fun thing. That's wonderful." It's I think that would to me, that seems like a sign that we're entering a new era. Because 20 years ago, I wasn't gonna sit on the internet and talk about this. I don't know. But yeah, I think more and more people are waking up. I mean, I can't say evidentially, like, how many, but I do think this field of near-death studies has really helped to verify it for people. Just in my own life, I've had friends reach out when they've seen my story and say, "Oh my gosh, I had an out of body experience," or "Oh my gosh, I had a dream about a relative before they passed." And like, and people are realizing there's more going on just in my own life. And I think it's way more accepted than it used to be. But this is the stuff my stepdad was very familiar with, not a big deal.
Yeah,
I think it's just some cultures we need to be woken up. So
that's right. Yeah, the Western culture
yeah.
tends to be a little stubborn, right?
I know, and, like, I think there's a balance because the scientific side is great, and the spiritual side is also great, and we just need to have a balance of both. So, I love that's part of why I love IAMS because it's doing that, like, in its organization, which is so cool.
Thank you
Yeah.
for the plug. Yeah, couldn't. Yeah.
It's true, though, I'm a big
Brilliant.
fan, so
That's great,
yeah.
Rebecca. It was such a wonderful conversation. I have one last question for you, but you
Okay.
kind of touched on it already a little bit. So let's see if we can expand it a little bit. What's the meaning of life?
Just a small question. I do believe in my experience, I do believe the meaning of life is to love and to grow into that love, so, um I mean, since my spiritual experience, I would have said before the meaning of life was to succeed because that was what was keeping me going. But now I think the meaning of life is to love and to grow spiritually and to share that love and to hopefully eventually create a better society.
Right back
So,
at you. That's great.
yay.
Let's do this.
Thanks, Danny.
That's great.
Yeah, we're going to do it. We're doing it right now.
Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Loving it. Do you have any party messages you would like to leave our audience with today?
Thanks for watching. And I hope you know just how loved you are and that love is always there for you. And you can just kind of open up to it and really change your life. And you don't have to die. So I think we all have a different path, but mine was that I did not die. So hopefully you don't always have to.
That's great,
Thanks.
Rebecca. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. I'll make sure you mention your website in the video description below. And yeah, I wish you all the best. Bye for
Thank
now.
you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Danny.
Cheers. Hi there. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the Ernst community, please leave a like, subscribe, and maybe share with the ones you love. New episodes are out each Friday. Until then, enjoy the stream we all call life and live the love you wish to see in the world. Bye for now.